Hello boring people, tonight we march, not to battle, but into the dusty, clunky, not so glorious world of Roman military formations. You might imagine you're a fierce warrior in gleaming armor, but no, you're just one of the 5,000 footsore legionaries, sweating under a Mediterranean sun that doesn't care if you're tired, itchy, or existentially confused. Around you, sandals slap dry dirt. The air smells like leather oil, sheep grease, and regret. You carry about 30 kilograms of gear, which includes a ridiculously heavy shield that looks more like a cabinet door than anything helpful. So before you jump into this boring and sleepy story, please take a moment to like my videos and subscribe to my channel, but only if you actually enjoy and feel comfortable with the stories I tell here. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Now lie down and relax, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's start our boring journey together tonight. The sun hangs above the Via Appia like it's judging you personally. You're marching with a unit of fellow unfortunate souls in the Roman legion, part soldier, part luggage mule. The commander barked something about a drill, but you didn't hear because you were focused on not tripping over that one guy in front of you whose sandals always flap like a dying duck. This isn't battle. It's just marching. For miles. And miles. The Romans loved their roads, straight, flat, engineered with absurd precision, and walking them is about as exciting as watching grass grow in Latin. You plod past olive trees, the occasional goat, and milestones carved with imperial propaganda. You spot a half-crumbled statue of Emperor Hadrian pointing somewhere, probably toward a place you'll never get to because your feet are made of pain now. Still, you have to admire it. These Romans, with their obsessive love for structure, managed to create an army machine that was predictable, organized, and very, very hard to defeat. You're a tiny cog in that machine, and today, you're being marched to a remote training camp outside Capua to learn something so dreadfully important it might actually keep you alive someday, the Testudo. But you don't know that yet. Right now, you're trying to remember whether it's your turn to carry the camp shovel or the bag of lentils. You'd rather carry neither. Also, your shield's edge keeps knocking your shin, and the sweat under your helmet has found its way into your left eye. Left, right, left, the centurion yells, because Romans apparently invented yelling. You feel like a beetle stuck under a boot. But this monotony, this snail-paced grind, is what made Rome so enduring. The structure, the discipline, the unwavering commitment to order, even if it means 40,000 soldiers all turning left at the same time like brainwashed ducks. Historians still argue whether Rome's real strength came from its military innovations or simply from how stubborn it was. They trained, then trained again. And when they were done training, they did more training. Everything was repetition until your brain wanted to turn into barley mush. The guy next to you, Marcus, has started humming the marching cadence in a slightly off-key tune that sounds like he's dying inside. Probably is. You can't blame him. Your back's sore, your thighs are chafing, and the dust has made a permanent home in your nostrils. A horn sounds up ahead. The line slows, then halts. You collapse onto your haunches and sigh. Then remember you're not allowed to sit during formation. Wonderful. You try to look busy adjusting your gladius, even though all you want is a nap under a cypress tree with no one yelling former Testudinus at you. A hawk circles overhead, judging all of you. You try not to make eye contact. The Legion is preparing for a shield drill. You don't know this yet, but today is the first day you'll hear the word testudo, Latin for tortoise, uttered with a seriousness normally reserved for laws, gods, or wine taxes. You ask an older soldier what it is. He snorts, scratches his beard, and says, "It's when we turn into a box of pain." That's not helpful. But that's fine. Your job is not to understand yet. It's to walk. So when the horn sounds again, you're back up and moving, step by step, through the dust and echoes of empire. A bee buzzes near your ear. You swat and nearly clock the guy behind you with your shield. He mutters something unkind in Gaulish. You're not entirely sure what day it is. Maybe Tuesday. Maybe Mars Day. Time in the Roman Legion is marked by blisters, not calendars. You trudge on, toward the first time you'll ever try to become a human tortoise. But for now, the road stretches ahead, long, dry, and absolutely perfect for sleepwalking through history. Just remember, if you nod off during this formation, you'll probably get trampled. The sun has barely shifted an inch when you finally arrive at the dusty clearing that some optimistic officer once called a training field. There's nothing green here, only dirt compacted from countless boots, and a stale wind that carries the scent of sweat, metal, and crushed ambition. You're ordered into a tight column. Shields up. Helmets on. Eyes forward, though your eyelids are protesting that part. A centurion struts down the line. His armor creaks like a judgmental grandfather. His expression is the emotional equivalent of a rock wall. He points at your shield, which is roughly the size and shape of a small dining table, and says, "That is not a pillow." Too late. You were already leaning your forehead against it like it was a blessed sleeping mat sent from the gods. Up, he snaps, and you reluctantly obey, hoisting the shield again. This, they explain, is the asterisk scutum star. Pronounced scultum, which is Latin for hope you enjoy carrying this until your spine becomes decorative pottery. Unlike those round Greek shields from the movies, this one's a curved rectangle, big enough to cover you from chin to shin. It's made of layered wood, leather, and iron, heavy, thick, and a surprisingly good cooking surface in emergencies. It's your new best friend, and it absolutely hates you. You shift your grip. The shield edge digs into your shoulder. You adjust again. Still worse. There is no correct position to hold this thing. It was clearly designed by someone who believed that pain builds character. You wonder if they also designed sandals that eat your toes from the inside. Now, move with it, the centurion commands. You step forward. The shield wobbles. Step again. The guy beside you bumps your arm. You clunk into him. It's like synchronized swimming, but with no water and a high risk of permanent back damage. You march back and forth. Then again. Then again. You begin to sweat so much it feels like your armor is trying to drown you from the inside out. Roman training philosophy can be summed up in 3 words, asterisk again but angrier star. Now, the centurion orders, raise your shields. You do it, arms trembling, until the top edge is level with your eyes. And that's when the shield begins to feel like a brick wall being held by spaghetti noodles. Your biceps scream. The shield tilts. You readjust. You want to cry, but your pride is too tired to bother. And that's when you get the first taste of asterisk formation logic star. Every soldier must not only hold their own shield, but also cover a portion of the soldier beside them. Shield edges must overlap, left to right, top to bottom, like the scales of a really angry fish. If one guy slips up, a gap forms, and suddenly the whole team is a human dartboard for enemy arrows. You find this out because, of course, someone slips up. The centurion spots it immediately. "Fall out, Septimus," he shouts. "Congratulations, you've just doomed the man next to you to an unpleasant haircut via javelin." Septimus mutters an apology that isn't accepted. You silently thank the gods it wasn't you this time. Historians still argue whether the Testudo Formation was ever truly effective on open battlefields, or mostly ceremonial, a flex of Roman order more than actual defense. Some say it worked well in sieges, when arrows and stones fell from above. Others argue it was more useful for parade displays and intimidating enemies with synchronized stomping. But what they all agree on, it required ridiculous discipline. You now experience that firsthand. The centurion begins shouting numbers, Testudo position. 1, 2, 3. The front line kneels, planting their shields in front of them like walls. The second row raises theirs overhead. The ones behind do the same, forming a roof. On the sides, men rotate slightly and angle their shields outward. It's like constructing a miserable wooden house, except the building materials are alive, sweaty, and constantly twitching. You try to lift your shield overhead like the guy beside you. It slips. The edge catches your helmet. You see stars. Not romantic ones. But finally, the formation locks into place. From the outside, it looks like a boxy tortoise made of wood and iron. Inside, it smells like goat cheese and fear. Your breath echoes in the tight space. Your arm shakes. The guy behind you keeps exhaling too loudly. You consider punching him with your free hand, but remember that your arms no longer belong to you. Someone farts. Quietly. But in a testudo, there's no escape. "Hold," the centurion yells. And you do. For minutes that feel like years. You begin to understand the real test here isn't arrows or enemy swords, it's whether your muscles will give out before your sanity. This isn't a formation built on strength. It's built on endurance star. On shared suffering. On not being the one who ruins everything for everyone else. And that's Roman genius in a nutshell. Or a shell. This strange tortoise technique, the forma testudinis *, would eventually become one of the most iconic images of Roman warfare. A defensive bubble. A movable fort. A way of saying, yes, we will take your arrows, and no, we won't flinch. Quirky detail, Roman shields were often decorated with bright red, gold, and eagle wing patterns. So if you look down at a testudo from above, it wouldn't just look like a tortoise, it'd look like a war tortoise painted by someone who'd recently discovered abstract art. Eventually, the centurion calls an end to the drill. You collapse backward into the dirt, the shield thudding beside you like a fallen wall. Your arms vibrate from the strain. Your neck won't turn left. You taste dust and regret. But you did it. Sort of. The sun's still up. More drills await. But for one blessed moment, you lie there wondering if tortoises ever envy humans. Spoiler, they probably don't. You wake up in places you didn't know had nerves. The inside of your elbows feel betrayed. Your thighs ache like they've personally lost a war. You're starting to suspect that the real reason the Roman Empire lasted so long was because no one wanted to fight a legion of men too stubborn to die just from sheer muscle cramps. Today, though, the centurion isn't yelling yet. Instead, He just watches you all from behind his helmet with that smug look only someone with the authority to ruin your day can master. Then, finally, his voice booms across the dusty morning air. Drill, coordinated shield movements. If even one of you looks like a startled donkey, you're starting over. A low groan passes through the line like wind through a haunted vineyard. Testudo, Phase 1. On my count. You shift your stance, feet braced, shield heavy in your arms. The command rings out. 1. Shields forward. You lurch into the formation. 2 steps forward. Shields overlap with your neighbors. You don't question it anymore, you just do it. Because muscle memory has finally started replacing that twitchy guesswork that got you smacked in the face by your own shield last time. 2. Shields up. The second rank raises. There's like a wooden sky. Yours goes up, too. Just barely. You try to focus on the weight evenly. Don't lean forward or the guy behind you will stumble. Don't bend your elbows or the top line droops. And definitely don't drop your shield or the centurion will launch into a poetry slam of insults that may scar your soul permanently. This is what the Romans drilled relentlessly: timing, unison, precision. You were expected to move as one unit, not as individuals. To survive as a tortoise, not a wild animal. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't even heroic in the traditional sense. But it worked. 1,000 shields moving in harmony meant that, under attack, the Legion didn't look like a panicking crowd, it looked like a wall. A crawling wall. A very annoyed, sweaty wall, yes, but one that would eat your army's strategy for breakfast. 3. Kneel. You kneel. Shield front angled slightly outward, protecting your shins and chest. It's surprisingly difficult to hold that position. You sway a little. The shield digs into your knee. You glance sideways. Your neighbor, Gaius, is biting his tongue with concentration so hard he looks like he's trying to solve Roman math. 4. Roof up. Here comes the overhead press again. Your biceps tremble. But something clicks. You're doing it with your unit, not alone. The movement is automatic. Almost elegant. It no longer feels like chaos, it's choreography. Painful, dusty, militarized ballet. They say the Romans drilled their formation so obsessively that even under fire, soldiers could execute them in total silence. No shouting needed. Just instinct. Which raises the eternal debate: did fear or habit hold the line? Historians still argue whether the legionary discipline came from pure military genius or just centuries of trauma passed down like heirloom furniture. Now comes the part you hate: shuffling forward in formation. Advance! The line moves. You shuffle along, shield overhead, packed tight with the smell of unwashed linen and boiled lentils. Your left foot hits something, a small stone, and you nearly topple backward into Lucius, who hisses, "Watch it, rookie!" You mumble an apology through gritted teeth. The shield shakes slightly. Your neck itches. Sweat slides down your ribs in awkward little trails. You try not to think about it. Each footstep is tiny. Shuffle. Crunch. Shuffle. Crunch. It's maddening. You feel like you're trapped inside a very slow stampede of armored snails. And yet, it works. The formation moves. Clumsy but solid. You are now, against all odds, part of something larger than yourself, a mobile defense unit that once terrified Rome's enemies from Britannia to Syria. Quirky tidbit? They even tested formations against simulated enemies. Sometimes officers would have volunteers climb hills and roll stones or hurl sandbags just to see if the testudo held. If it collapsed, everyone trained harder. If it held, well, there were still more drills, obviously. Because comfort is a luxury for civilians. And then, just as you feel like you're about to drop dead mid-shuffle, the centurion shouts, "Recover!" You all break formation. Shields down. A collective exhale rises like steam off a kettle. You're panting. Your shoulders feel like burnt bread. But in a strange way, you're proud. Not because you were brilliant, but because you weren't the weakest link. The centurion walks past, grunts approvingly, and says, "Better." Still miserable, but better. You decide that's probably the closest thing to a compliment he'll ever give. You clutch your shield to your side like a tired puppy and sit down on a half-buried rock. The guy next to you chuckles and says, "We looked like an angry bread loaf." You smile. A tired, dust-covered, shoulder-wrecked smile. But still a smile. And just when you think the drill's done for the day, the centurion yells. Again. You sigh. The man behind you lets out a long groan that's probably echoed through every legion since the dawn of time. And once more, you lift your not-a-pillow shield, kneel into place, and become a tiny part of the Empire's slow, unstoppable shell. You've lost track of how many times you've lifted this cursed shield today. Your arms feel like bags of half-cooked porridge, and your brain is somewhere between rage and resignation. You no longer fear the centurion shouting. Honestly, it's become kind of a lullaby. "Testudo," he shouts again. Of course. You brace your feet automatically, lifting the shield in that same synchronized dance. There's no hesitation this time, no misstep. The roof snaps into place overhead with a clatter of wood and iron. You can't see much except the dusty ankles of the man in front of you and a bit of sunlight leaking through the gaps in the roof shields. What's new today is the javelins. You hear a rustle, then thud, a sudden slam on the roof above. Then another. Then a dozen. Thud, 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 thud. The shields rattle like angry cookware in a Roman earthquake. Dust sifts down from the seams. It's a test. Your instructors are tossing training peeler, lightweight practice javelins made of wood and dull iron, straight at the formation. You're not supposed to flinch, but everyone flinches. A loud snap as one of the javelins bounces off with force. Someone behind you yells, "That one cracked my dreams." The centurion laughs. Actually laughs. You didn't think he could. It's terrifying. This is the next evolution of training, under pressure. You're learning not just to hold formation, but to endure inside it. Because in real battle, it won't be practice spears and good-natured insults. It'll be screaming enemies, flying projectiles, chaos everywhere. And you? You'll still have to keep your corner of the box perfect. Historians still argue whether the testudo was viable in the chaos of full-scale combat. Some say it worked best in sieges and static advances, like against archers on city walls. Others claim it made troops vulnerable to cavalry charges or flanking maneuvers. But even skeptics admit, for certain conditions, it was genius. Especially during the slow, grinding push through enemy defense. Today, you start simulating that exact scenario. Advance under fire, the centurion commands. And suddenly you're moving again, roof overhead, walls on all sides. Thunk! Another javelin hits. You flinch again. Don't look up, someone whispers behind you. You weren't going to, but now you really want to. Every step is a shuffle, but your body's learning the rhythm. You feel the group move together, like a sluggish wooden organism with dozens of sweaty hearts. The floor is uneven, but you adapt. The shield above you slips for a second, then tightens again as the guy behind you readjusts. The testudo is unforgiving, yes. But it teaches. You're learning to trust the guy beside you. And above you. And behind you. Because if even one of them breaks formation, the whole tortoise dies. Quirky side fact. Some ancient sources claim that generals would sometimes place musicians near formations, playing slow, regular drum beats or horns to help the legionaries keep time while advancing in tight units. If true, it means you were basically marching to battle with your own tragically underpaid soundtrack. But your training has no music. Just more sandbags and javelins. Now the trainers get creative. They've built a mock gate at the edge of the field, just 2 upright posts and a plank across the top. It's symbolic, but it represents enemy fortifications. Form testudo and approach the gate, comes the next order. You march toward it in slow, grueling sync. The shields overhead shake again from more impact. The guys in the front line have their scooter planted in front like battering rams. You're just behind them, sweat dripping off your chin. And then, break and charge. Suddenly, the whole formation dissolves. You drop the roof. The front line lunges. The rest of you surge forward with a roar that sounds more like a communal groan. You ram through the gate like bees exploding out of a box. And just like that, the simulation ends. You're heaving, panting, arms numb. But it's your first experience of how the testudo ends. It's not a forever box. It's a tool to protect while moving, then open like a trap and unleash the fury of trained men. There's no standing ovation, obviously. This is the Roman army, not your grandmother's amphitheater. But a few of the older veterans nod at you. One even gives a brief thumbs up. In Roman culture, that doesn't mean execute them, by the way. That's just a modern myth. You slump to the ground, lying flat. Sand sticks to your neck. The scutum is lying next to you like a faithful but very heavy dog. From somewhere nearby, a familiar voice says, "One day, they'll make statues of us doing this." You crack one eye open. Only if the statues are made of crumbling bread and smell like defeat. He chuckles. Your instructor walks past, muttering, "Not bad, for a bunch of half-baked mule handlers." That might be a compliment. Maybe. You lie still, heart slowing. The tortoise rests. You can barely feel your arms the next day. Your shoulders protest with every motion, as if they're trying to unionize. Even tying your sandals feels like an act of betrayal to your body. But the horn blows again, shrill, steady, and impossible to ignore. So, like the good little tortoise you are, you groan, roll over, and start preparing for another day of testudo training. Today's surprise? You'll be taking the formation on the road. The centurion's voice, hoarse from years of yelling at furniture-shaped recruits like you, calls out the order. Testudo march, 1.5 miles. Uphill. Silence. Not a single groan, because by now you all know the rule: any sign of weakness becomes an invitation for a creative punishment. Last time someone sighed, the entire cohort had to do synchronized shield lifts while reciting Roman poetry backward. Loudly. So you hoist your scutum and find your position. One by one, shields click into place, front, sides, roof. And then, like a lurching wooden tank, the formation begins to move. Crunch. 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 The march is slow, deliberate. The shields make it harder to breathe, harder to see, harder to be, honestly. You can't even scratch your nose. Every breath comes with a mouthful of warm, recycled air that smells like wool, dust, and someone's questionable breakfast. But still, you move. The road beneath you is uneven. It winds through a low hill, part of the training grounds that mimics enemy territory. Your formation groans like a dying cartwheel as you ascend. Sweat trickles down your back. You blink, trying to keep dust from your eyes. And yet, you don't fall apart. This is what the Roman generals wanted, an army that could not only form a tortoise, but stay one, even while climbing, sweating, blinded, and mocked by every bird overhead. Mainstream history fact: the Testudo Formation saw famous use during Julius Caesar's campaigns, especially in siege warfare. During the Siege of Alesia, for example, legionaries used the Testudo to approach Gallic defenses under a hail of projectiles. The shields covered them from above and in front, creating a mobile shelter for engineers to work and soldiers to breach walls. Keep pace, your centurion bellows. Your thighs burn like a cursed potion. The man beside you hiccups quietly and says, "I'm seeing stars, and none of them are constellations." Somehow, this absurd comment keeps you going. Quirky tidbit? There's an old joke among Roman veterans that the only thing harder than fighting in a testudo was peeing in one. Nobody ever tells you what happens when nature calls and you're packed shoulder to shoulder inside a wooden tortoise for 2 hours. Spoiler alert, you wait. You just wait and suffer. Finally, the formation reaches a clearing. Break. You all drop your shields. The sound is deafening. Would an iron slam against the dirt with a collective clatter like angry gods dropping cutlery. You stumble out, stretch your arms, and try not to cry from relief. One guy actually kisses the ground. Another mutters, "I think my spine inverted." But you know what? You did it. 1.5 miles, uphill, blind, and boxed in, and you held the formation. That's not nothing. Now comes the lecture. The centurion marches to the front, arms crossed. He looks at each of you with the weary disdain of someone wondering how these wobbly creatures will ever become real soldiers. "Good," he says. Slower than a 3-legged ox with indigestion, but good. He pauses. "Tomorrow, we do it under attack." Everyone groans. He smirks. You know what's coming next. That night, by firelight, you and a few others sit near the barracks. Your legs are jelly. Your back aches. You hold your shield like a baby bird made of anvils. Someone, probably the same guy who hiccups inspirationally, leans in and says, "Do you think anyone liked being in the testudo? Back then?" You shrug. Historians still argue whether the average Roman soldier admired the testudo or just dreaded it like an ancient group project where everyone gets blisters. Someone else pipes up, "My uncle said the testudo saved his life once." They were storming a city wall, and the archers came down like rain. His commander screamed, "Testudo," and they locked shields just in time. 3 arrows got stuck in the roof right above his head. Another guy chuckles and adds, "Yeah, but my cousin says he once saw one collapse because a goat ran into the side." Silence. Then everyone laughs. Loud, hard, full-body laughter. Because it's possible. You wouldn't put it past a goat. The fire crackles. Your limbs calm. The pain fades to background noise. You lean back and stare up at the stars, your helmet under your head, the constellations blurring slightly with exhaustion. You think, maybe, you'll survive tomorrow after all. The morning air is too fresh to trust. It's suspiciously crisp, like nature is trying to trick you into thinking this day won't be absolutely miserable. You're not falling for it. Form up. Testudo, ready for engagement. Here we go again. But this time, it's not a simple march. Today's twist, the enemy fights back. Well, not real enemies. It's just another group of recruits, your fellow soldiers in suffering. They've been given practice peeler, slings with soft clay balls, and most dangerously of all, permission to aim directly at you. You take your place in the shield wall. Front row, second from the right. Your scutum slams into place. The roof locks above. The tortoise is reborn. And then, chaos. From the tree line, your enemy emerges with whoops and taunts. A rain of clay balls pelts the roof like a storm made of angry grapes. Some bounce harmlessly, others strike with a loud THWAP that makes your heart jump. Your job? Don't break. You grit your teeth and shuffle forward, step by aching step. The whole testudo moves as one, slow but determined, like a crusty, armored loaf of bread with a bad attitude. Someone ahead mutters, "If we survive this, I'm marrying my shield." You'd laugh if you weren't so busy concentrating on not dying of embarrassment when a clay ball smacks you square on the helmet with a hollow bonk. It's a beautiful sound, in a humiliating way. Mainstream historical fact, the Roman testudo wasn't just a defensive tactic for arrows, it was also used in siege warfare when approaching enemy fortifications, carrying battering rams or even ladders. The tightly locked shields protected the soldiers from archers above, buying just enough time to reach the base of a wall. In that moment, it was less tortoise, more bulldozer. But as you're learning, the formation's strength relies entirely on coordination. Today, that coordination is debatable. Someone in the back line sneezes. The sneeze turns into a stumble. That stumble becomes a wobble. Suddenly, the rear corner of the testudo buckles, and the side wall opens like a trapdoor. Hole on the left, someone shouts. Your heart lurches. You brace your shield tighter as a clay ball flies right through the gap and nails a guy in the armpit. "Gah!" he cries, toppling sideways. The centurion blows his horn, signaling a retreat. The formation scatters like dice on a tavern table. You stand blinking in the sudden light. The shield drops from your aching arm with a dull thud. Around you, your fellow soldiers are doubled over, panting, bruised, and muddy. Again, the centurion roars. But this time, no falling apart. You sigh, retrieve your shield, and wobble back into position. A friend beside you whispers, "I miss marching uphill. At least the road wasn't hurling projectiles at me." Quirky tidbit, some ancient Roman soldiers carved little symbols or messages into the inside of their shields, names of lovers, short prayers, or even doodles of Gladius-wielding turtles. It was a personal touch inside a formation designed to erase individuality. You haven't done it yet, But after today, you're strongly considering carving property of someone who hates this. The second round begins. This time, you're ready. The testudo forms tighter now. No cracks. No weak corners. The enemy fires again, but you move with purpose. The rhythm clicks. Shields shudder under impact but hold firm. Someone starts muttering a marching chant under their breath, and soon it spreads. We are bricks. We don't break. We are turtles. We don't ache. It's stupid. It's catchy. It works. You approach the mock wall. The front row kneels. The next row angles their shields forward. Roof above, shields in front. A few of the enemy recruits chuckle and lob one last volley of clay. You feel the impact but don't flinch. That's the real win today, you didn't flinch. And just like that, the horn sounds again. Victory! The formation disbands with groans, grins, and the universal sound of exhausted bodies collapsing onto sun-warmed grass. You sit beside your shield, squinting at a clay ball still rolling in lazy circles. Someone offers you a flask of watered wine. You take it, sip, and ask, "How do you think this would go in a real fight?" He shrugs. Historians still argue whether formations like this worked beyond sieges. Maybe we'd get lucky. Maybe we'd all die like a giant wooden centipede having an allergic reaction. You both snort. Still, you say, stretching, there's something kind of beautiful about it. He looks at you sideways. You getting poetic on me? No, I mean it. We're all messed up, mismatched guys. But in the box, we're one thing. One body. One beast. He nods. A slow, angry beast with no rear visibility. Exactly. The rest of the day is lighter. The centurion actually says the word decent. You're not sure whether to celebrate or worry he's been replaced by a gentler clone. You pass your scutum to the armorer for repairs. Small cracks from today's battles need smoothing. The smith runs a calloused hand over the dented rim and mutters, "She's holding up well. Must be your lucky turtle." You grin. She'd better be. We're going back in tomorrow. And somehow, impossibly, you look forward to it. Your arm still tingles from yesterday's impact. That one clay ball, the one that smacked into your helmet like a caffeinated pigeon, left a mark, both physical and emotional. But you don't have time to dwell. Today's challenge is different. No hills. No mock enemies. No pelting from above. Today is Siege Day. Testudo advance. Toward the tower. The tower is a creaky wooden structure at the far end of the field, maybe 20 feet high, with a fake wall and a platform for would-be archers. It's made of timber and confidence, and the centurion wants you to approach it like it's a Gallic fortress. You're not quite sure if it's more terrifying that it looks so realistic, or that they clearly expect you to survive climbing it under fire. You get into formation. Shields click. Front line tightens. Roof seals above. And slowly, you begin the march. Every step is cautious. Someone's sandal snaps, but he keeps walking anyway. The whole formation creaks and groans like an old ship preparing to storm a harbor. You can barely see. The shield in front of you is like a thick, scarred window to a very dusty world. From the platform, the archers begin their play attack. Small bin bags. You'd laugh if they didn't hit like angry birds with vengeance in their tiny cloth hearts. Mainstream historical fact: in real Roman sieges, like the assault on Mars Ada or the siege of Jerusalem, the Testudo Formation allowed soldiers to get close to fortified walls while under constant missile attack. They could then undermine walls, batter gates, or scale ladders, all while protected by interlocking shields above and around. Roman discipline, not just gear, made this possible. The beanbags thump against your shield in rhythmic misery. Someone behind you whispers, "I can't tell if I'm sweating or crying." You whisper back, "If it drips into your mouth, you'll know." Still, you march. Closer now. The tower looms. Then comes the centurion's next order: deploy ladder team. Oh, great! 2 soldiers from the center break formation, shields on backs, long wooden ladders on their shoulders. They inch forward under the continued barrage. The Testudo flexes open to let them pass, then immediately closes behind them. It's seamless. Almost professional. You're mildly horrified at the implication: you're getting good at this. You press forward. Now you're just feet from the base of the tower. Your job? Hold the formation and absorb incoming fire while the ladder team ascends. Quirky tidbit: in some units, Roman soldiers had personalized battle cries they'd shout before charging. But in formations like the Testudo, silence was often key. Moving as one required quiet focus. Some reports say commanders communicated with a mix of taps on shields, whispered phrases, and horn signals. So basically, ancient tactical ASMR. Someone in the Testudo tries humming to stay calm. It's weirdly soothing. You don't recognize the tune, but it sounds like something you'd hear from a flute player in a tavern with only one paying customer and a goat. The ladder thuds against the platform. The mock archers cheer from above. One of them drops a small cloth flaming bag onto the roof, red-dyed fabric stuffed with hay and something that smells suspiciously like burnt toast. It bounces off harmlessly. Hold! The centurion's voice cuts through everything. Firm. Satisfied. The Testudo holds. One ladder soldier climbs, shaky but steady. He reaches the top and shouts, "Wall breached!" Everyone cheers. Then silence. You all stand still for a moment, just breathing under the hot, stuffy shield shell. Your armor feels like it's welded to your ribs. The scent of leather, sweat, and faintly toasted fake fire still lingers in the air. The horn sounds the end. Testudo withdraw. You step back. Slowly, carefully, the formation reverses. Like a tortoise that's just insulted a bear and now wants no part of the consequences. You break formation halfway to camp and collapse on the grass. Your shield leaves a square dent in the dirt. Your spine feels like it's been replaced with one of those bendy wax toys kids throw at walls. Beside you, a soldier says, "Historians still argue whether anyone actually liked being in siege Testudos." They talk about tactics, survivability, morale, but never how much it sucked to climb a burning ladder in sandals. You snort. At least we didn't have real archers. Or boiling oil. Or bees. Wait, bees? Oh yeah, you say, stretching your legs. Some ancient cities used beehives as anti-siege weapons. Drop a couple angry hives from the wall, and suddenly your tortoise is a panic parade. He shudders. No wonder nobody talks about that in school. Later, after washing off dust and dignity, you sit by the fire again. Someone passes around dried figs and a half-squashed loaf of bread. The taste is plain, but tonight, even that feels like victory food. You look around. The same grumbling, ridiculous group you started with is now a team. You moved as one. You endured fake fire and stormed a fake wall. And nobody broke formation. You might even be proud. A little. Just quietly. The moon's risen above the horizon now, full and steady, watching over your camp like an old sentinel. You lie back, fold your arms, and whisper, "Not bad for a tortoise." The testudo doesn't rest for long. You wake up to the trumpets of irritation, that is, the training horns, blaring before sunrise. Your body protests with every step as you fumble into your armor. Your shoulder is now permanently shaped like your shield strap, and your feet feel like flat loaves of sad bread. Today's twist? Obstacles. And not just any obstacles. Mud pits. Spiked fences. Rolling logs. Fake caltrops made of sharp pebbles and pure resentment. Welcome to the obstacle gauntlet. Testudo Formation. Advance through the gauntlet without breaking ranks. Oh, sure. Because dragging 70 pounds of gear while navigating a gladiator-grade booby trap course sounds like a delightful way to start your day. You and the others huddle up, shields up and around, then begin the long, slow march of the doomed. At first, the ground is dry. Then it squelches. Then your foot disappears into something that smells like regret and probably once contained a pig. But you trudge on. Mainstream historical fact: Roman military training included brutal endurance courses, often over difficult terrain. These were designed to test not only individual toughness but the formation's cohesion. Testudo drills over rough ground prepared soldiers to stay unified even when the battlefield became a chaotic mess of mud, debris, and screaming. Well, mission accomplished. The first real test arrives in the form of a low, wooden arch you must duck under, while maintaining the testudo roof. This requires almost folding in half while holding 40 pounds of shield above your head. You immediately regret all your life choices. Somewhere behind you, someone mutters, "I used to dream of being a poet." You grunt back, then rhyme your way out of this swamp. Quirky tidbit: Roman training camps were often deliberately located in areas with varied terrain, rocky, marshy, even forested, so recruits had to learn how to adapt to terrain changes without dropping formation. Some sites included surprise trenches filled with water, or poles with dangling weights that swung into the testudo formation like a children's birthday game from Hades. Speaking of swinging weights. Boom! One slams into your left side. Just a padded log, suspended by rope, but still, it feels like getting hugged by a very angry tree. You wince. The formation wobbles, but miraculously holds. You're starting to hate how competent you're all getting at this. Next, you reach the caltrop field. No real iron spikes, just sharp stones and maybe some bones from yesterday's mystery stew. You advance slowly, feeling each step like a baby deer in gladiator boots. One wrong move and someone might scream, fall, or at least sprain a toe. The testudo hesitates. The centurion shouts, "Keep moving." So you do. Tense. Careful. Tiptoe testudo. And then, you hear it. Laughter. Not mocking. Delighted. You glance sideways and see a group of veteran soldiers watching from a small hill. They're pointing, nudging one another, clearly enjoying the show. One of them cups his hands and shouts, "Real battle's worse." You shout back, "So are your teeth." There's an approving laugh. Historians still argue whether Roman training methods were more effective because of their cruelty, or in spite of it. Some believe the constant drilling, obstacles, and exhaustion forged unbreakable units. Others say it led to high dropout and injury rates that had to be constantly replenished with fresh recruits. But one thing's certain, if you survive Roman training, you can survive anything. As the final challenge, you reach the wall climb. Yes. Climb. In formation. It's a fake palisade, 12 feet tall, wood planks, ropes hanging like sarcastic vines. The front of the testudo breaks apart into its climbing units. You and 2 others press forward while the rest form a protective semicircle behind you. You drop your shield at the base and grab the rope. Hand over hand. Every fiber of your arm screams. But you keep going. Midway up, your sandal slips. A moment of panic, your heart tries to climb out of your throat, but your partner below shouts, "I've got you," and braces the rope. You recover. Reach the top. Swing a leg over. And then, you're standing on a platform, looking down at the formation. Shieldless. But not defenseless. Just elevated. You raise your arm in victory. A cheer goes up from below. You almost smile. Almost. The descent is awkward. You slide. You scrape your elbow. You definitely pick up a splinter that will now live with you forever. But when your boots hit the ground again, the centurion's horn blows once more. Withdraw. You reform. And this time, even with mud, bruises, and shame clinging to you like a bad nickname, you march back in tight, perfect testudo. The sun is high now. You've been at it for hours. And still, you stand. As you drop your shield near the supply tent, someone whistles low. You know, I think we're starting to look like real soldiers. You grin, bent over, hands on your knees. Or very determined turtles. Later, as you soak your feet in a cold basin and watch steam rise from your bruised legs, someone offers you a bet. 5 denarii says tomorrow includes fire. You shake your head. If there's fire, I'm climbing back into the swamp. Your shield smells like wet socks and punishment. That's the first thing you notice this morning as you hoist it over your shoulder, again. Your back creaks like an old door. Your knees make popping sounds that would terrify a small animal. And your face? A masterclass in sunburn patterns, nose beet red, cheeks two-tone, and a delightful shield shadow down the center like a Roman raccoon. Today's lesson? Speed testudo. Because apparently, shuffling like a tortoise across the battlefield wasn't quite enough torture. Now, you must do it faster. The centurion lays it out clearly, with the terrifying cheerfulness of a man who doesn't have to actually do the drill. You'll form testudo and cross the field in under 2 minutes. Maintain formation. Shields tight. Anyone who drops their shield gets the honor of cleaning the latrines for a week. Yes, motivation, Roman style. You line up. You click shields together. You squat into the position that will, in a few centuries, become the favored pose of low-budget medieval action figurines. And the horn blows. Go. You surge forward, not running, not walking. Something between a march and a controlled panic. Your sandals slap against the dirt in a sloppy rhythm, shield up and forward, your view narrowed to the dusty heels of the soldier ahead. Mainstream historical fact: Testudo wasn't just about defense, it had to move. Roman engineers often built temporary roads in advance of assaults, just so formations like the Testudo could keep up the momentum and reach siege walls quickly. The faster the tortoise, the fewer arrows it had to eat. But you're not on a neatly paved road. You're on training ground terrain, which today is about as flat as a sleeping bear's back. You hit a divot. Your foot twists. You recover, but your rhythm's off. The soldier beside you stumbles. A chain reaction of wobbling bodies ripples down the line. Reset, the centurion barks. You groan and shuffle back to the start line. This happens 3 more times. By the 4th try, you're so sweaty your armor squeaks with every movement. On the 5th try, something clicks. Shields are up. Steps are in sync. You move as one. You don't see much, just the dust, the legs in front of you, and the occasional glimpse of the goal, a raised platform with a painted target that reads, sarcastically, "You made it, barely." You cross the finish line at a staggering pace, 1 minute 57 seconds. A miracle. The centurion almost smiles. Which, in Roman terms, is like getting a bonus and a promotion and a shoulder massage all at once. "Better," he says. You all collapse in the shade like discarded puppets. Quirky tidbit: some sources claim the Testudo could even pivot while moving, rotating the entire formation 90 degrees to face a new threat. Imagine a dozen heavily armored men sidestepping together while holding 20-pound shields. It wasn't ballet, but it worked. If you've ever tried sidestepping in Sandals, you know it should count as a war crime. And just when you think it's over, the centurion adds, "Now let's see if you can turn the Testudo." Groans echo across the field. You reform, reluctantly. This time, the command is different: advance 30 paces, then pivot right. The challenge isn't in the turning, it's in not stepping on each other's feet and becoming a tragic domino parade. You march. You pivot. Somewhere in the middle, you get elbowed in the ribs by someone who's trying to be helpful but also deeply confused by their own feet. Still, you manage a rough turn. Another. By the 3rd time, you're pivoting like a well-oiled wardrobe. "Almost beautiful," the centurion mutters. Historians still argue whether the Testudo was as flexible in real battle as the textbooks claim. Some believe it was mostly used in sieges, where movement was linear and predictable. Others insist it saw more varied use, even during mobile skirmishes. But all agree, it wasn't for running, it was for enduring. Which is exactly what you're doing now. After the drill, you slump on a bench, chugging watered-down wine from a dented tin cup. A comrade leans beside you, panting. "We're starting to look like a tortoise that doesn't hate itself." You nod. "Speak for yourself." "My shoulders are divorcing me." He lifts his arm and watches it wobble like a flag in a weak breeze. Fair. That night, the camp feels different. Calmer. You're too tired to argue, too sore to complain, and, surprisingly, a little proud. It's not glory. It's not conquest. It's not the kind of moment that gets carved into marble or painted onto pottery. But for the first time, the Testudo didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like armor. Like a second skin. And in that, you begin to understand the Romans, not the emperors or poets or marble statues, but the men. The tired, dirty, sandal-wearing souls who stood together, shield to shield, and didn't run when the arrows came. Because maybe it wasn't about the tortoise at all. maybe it was about not being alone inside the shell. You start the day thinking, maybe today won't be so bad. That's your first mistake. Because today is Arrow's day. You're lined up on the training field again, armor clanking like a blacksmith's nightmare, sweat already beading on your forehead before the drills even begin. The Centurion is grinning. This is always a bad sign. He shouts, "Today, you'll learn to love the sound of arrows." Love? You exchange a look with the recruit next to you, whose expression suggests he'd rather be hit by a cart full of olives than deal with airborne pointy sticks. Testudo Formation. Shields up. You snap into position. Your body already knows the rhythm: forward shield, overhead shield, left overlap, back locked. Then the whistle. The archers begin. Thunk. Thud. Thunk. The arrows bounce off the top and front shields like hailstones on a roof, startling, but not penetrating. Still, your instincts scream, duck, run, cry, repeat. Mainstream historical fact: Roman training exercises often included live arrow fire against formations like the Testudo, using blunted or practice-tipped arrows. The point wasn't to injure but to condition soldiers to hold the line under real enemy fire. The practice helped reduce flinching and panic on actual battlefields. You are, apparently, being conditioned. Thunk. Thunk. One arrow glances off your overhead shield and slaps the helmet of the soldier behind you. He grunts, then mutters, "I felt that in my spleen." You snort. You don't even know where your spleen is. No, but it definitely hurts now. The volley ends. You lower your shield and shake out your arms, which feel like boiled pasta. Then the Centurion calls, again. And the sky darkens with wooden rain. This goes on for what feels like 7 eternities. The archers try different angles: front, side, elevated. At one point, someone fires from a tree. You're starting to hate that tree. You adapt. Your formation tightens. The rhythm becomes muscle memory: shield up, brace, breathe, don't flinch. And somewhere in that chaos, you realize something weird: you feel safe. The Testudo is doing its job. You hear the arrows, but you don't feel them. You see your comrades' feet and elbows, and you know they're still with you. That matters more than the sky full of sharp objects. Quirky tidbit: some Roman drills used mock enemy cries. Recruits would be shouted at, insulted, and surprised with horns or war drums during the Testudo, simulating the chaos of battle. It wasn't just physical endurance, it was psychological hardening, a loud, dusty school for staying cool under pressure. Right on cue, someone from the sidelines yells, "Your mother's a barbarian." You whisper back, "She makes a mean stew." Someone chuckles, despite themselves. Then, thunk. An arrow slams against your shield so hard it vibrates up your bones. Another slaps your calf. A warning shot. Close, but not puncturing. The arrows keep coming. And still, you hold. Historians still argue whether the Testudo was truly as impenetrable as ancient sources claimed. Some writers, like Cassius Dio, describe it repelling vast arrow storms without a single injury. Others suggest those were exaggerated, and that the formation worked better against high-arcing volleys than direct fire. What's clear is that its psychological effect was immense, on friend and foe alike. From outside, you must look like a beast. A metal turtle with the patience of the gods and the bite of an empire. To your enemies, you're not individuals anymore. You're one thing. And that's terrifying. You take a break at midday. The archers lounge nearby, casually plucking arrows from the dirt like they're harvesting carrots. One calls over, "Nice holding today." You nod, drinking from your water skin. Could have aimed worse, though. He grins. Where's the fun in that? The next drill is trickier, advancing under arrow fire. This means moving the testudo while being pelted from above. You reform. The whistle blows. Thunk. Thunk. You march. 1 step. 2 steps. An arrow deflects and skids down your shield like a bug on a window. You keep going. You focus on your breathing. On the slap of sandals. On the unity. Then, someone panics. A newer recruit in the rear flinches hard, loses grip on his shield. A corner lifts. An arrow sneaks through. A yell. The formation shudders. The centurion shouts, "Hold." You brace. The hole is sealed. The recruit gets patched up, nothing serious, a scrape on the thigh. But it's a reminder. This only works when everyone works. You complete the drill. And for the first time, the centurion claps. Now that, he says, is what Roman defense looks like. You're too tired to be smug. But you feel it, deep in your cracked shoulders and sweat-drenched chest. The tortoise survives the arrows. That night, you lie on your cot, staring at the canvas above you, the ghost sound of arrows still flitting through your ears. But you feel no fear. Just muscle memory. Shield. Brace. Breathe. Don't flinch. You're not a warrior yet. But you're a step closer to becoming one. And tomorrow? More arrows. Of course. Dawn. Again. Because apparently, the sun still exists, and it still insists on waking you up like a flaming rooster. Your arms ache. Your back protests. Your thighs have developed their own language to file complaints. And what's on the training schedule? Siege practice. Because the only thing better than standing in a tortoise shell while people fire arrows at you is doing that while walking toward a very tall wall with hot things being dropped from it. You're summoned to the Muris test, the wall test. This isn't just about defense anymore, it's about taking the offensive while staying alive. You line up with your cohort, shields in hand, grit in your teeth, and that familiar smell of old sweat and wet leather thick in the air. The centurion bellows, "Today we learn what the testudo is for." He gestures to the far side of the field, where a mock stone wall waits, complete with catwalks and buckets of questionable liquid. A few smug-looking recruits from the auxiliary units are already stationed above it, ready to rain hell. Mainstream historical fact, the testudo was famously used during sieges to advance on fortified positions. Roman soldiers would approach enemy walls in tight formation, using their overlapping shields to absorb arrows, rocks, boiling water, and burning pitch. The goal, get close enough to breach, climb, or batter the wall without becoming kebabs along the way. Your job today? Approach the wall, survive the fire from above simulation, and demonstrate that you can break formation close enough for sappers or siege ladders to be deployed. Easy. You form up. Shields click and clatter. Your world narrows again, to the dark interior of your tortoise shell, the scent of iron and vinegar, and the familiar rhythm of synchronized feet. You advance. 30 paces from the wall, it begins. First, rocks. Heavy, wooden ones. They bounce off your shields like angry furniture. One glances off your overhead protection and nearly knocks the wind out of your lungs through your knees. Then, boiling water. Not real boiling, of course, but warm and greasy enough to make you gag as it splashes down and slicks your shield. Someone in the wall crew is definitely adding garlic. You hold. Closer comes the shout. You shuffle forward, tight and slow, like a dinner table full of very anxious clams. Thunk. Clatter. Splash. You can barely see anything but the shifting legs and swaying shields. Quirky tidbit: Roman engineers were meticulous about these drills. Some legions trained with weighted shields soaked in brine to simulate the added weight of wet leather during real sieges. One prank-loving centurion even added fish guts to his unit's water buckets to encourage recruits to finish the drill quickly. You're fairly sure someone just poured turnip soup down the back of your tunic. You do not feel encouraged. The shouting above grows louder. And then you reach the wall. You slam into it as one unit. Shield still raised, feet still locked. Your front rank braces, ready to protect the engineers who would normally be placing ladders, hammers, or even torch bundles. Now hold, the centurion bellows from behind. You do. For an entire 5 minutes, you endure everything the wall can throw. Someone above drops a bucket of feathers. For fun, you assume. Don't sneeze, your comrade whispers. I think I inhaled half a chicken. Historians still argue whether testudo formations were used right up to the walls in all Roman sieges or primarily in symbolic or scripted scenarios. Some believe the formation was too slow and clunky for dynamic siege fighting, while others cite detailed ancient descriptions of soldiers advancing to the base of walls and using the testudo as a mobile barrier. Either way, you're here now, pressed against stone, soaked, dizzy, and still holding the line. The horn sounds. Retreat. You break formation carefully, turning and stepping back in rhythm, shield still up. The barrage stops. You peel away, breathless, and collapse in the shade. A medic checks for injuries, none serious. A scraped ankle, a bruised ego. You sit beside your friend and stare up at the wall, now quiet. He sighs. That was educational. You nod. I think I learned how it feels to be a grilled beet. He grins. We didn't break. That's what sticks with you. Not the soup or the rocks or the smell that's permanently trapped inside your armor. The not breaking. You stood. You moved. You endured. Together. Later that evening, the centurion debriefs the cohort. You moved like a single creature, he says. That's what Rome demands. Not just strength, but discipline. You will not win because you're braver. You will win because you're tighter. He paces. The enemy will throw everything at you. Chaos. Fire. Fury. But if your shields are locked, and your minds are steady, you are unbeatable. There's silence. And in that silence, something shifts. The testudo is no longer a joke. It's a contract. You give up your space, your comfort, your name, and gain protection in return. You're not just a soldier. You're part of a shell. And tomorrow, you'll wear it again. It's one thing to practice testudo in an open field with your centurion barking and your friend sweating beside you. It's another thing entirely to do it on a slope, in full armor, with live catapult rounds firing over your head. Welcome to the joy that is Terrain Adaptation Day. This morning's challenge? March the Testudo Formation up a muddy incline, hold it against incoming projectiles, and not look like a collapsing pile of dinner plates while doing so. You look up at the hill, already groaning. The top is littered with training catapults. They're launching dummy boulders wrapped in padded linen, but at this distance, a dummy still feels very real. Move like one, or fall like many, your centurion says, arms folded smugly. Your cohort forms the tortoise once more. Shields interlock. The world goes dark and quiet again, except for your own breathing and the creaking of soaked leather straps. Mainstream historical fact: Roman Testudo formations had to adapt to uneven terrain, especially during sieges or battlefield advances where ground conditions were rarely ideal. Some sources describe the Testudo crawling up slopes, through narrow paths, even advancing into shallow water when surrounding cities or fortresses. Coordination was everything. You take your first step. Mud grabs your sandals like it wants you to stay for dinner. Then comes the first whomp. A boulder soars overhead and lands with a dull thud just to your right. The ground vibrates beneath your feet. Still, you climb. Shields overhead begin to slide as soldiers struggle to keep their grip at the angle. You adjust your elbows, keeping the shield edge locked with the man behind you. Don't let gravity win, someone mutters. You're not sure if it's motivational or a plea to the gods. Quirky tidbit: some training camps included miniature siege ramps, wooden platforms coated in animal fat, to teach soldiers how to maintain formation on slippery surfaces. Legend has it that a particularly sadistic general in Hispania added soap to the mix. That cohort became known as the Sliders. Thankfully, no soap today. Just your own sweat doing the lubricating. You grind your way upward. The formation groans like a creaking ship. But still, you move. Halfway up, someone slips. Your Testudo wobbles. Hold, the centurion roars. You freeze. Shields stay up, somehow. The fallen soldier is lifted by the comrade beside him, locked back into place. You keep moving. Historians still argue whether the Testudo was intended for extended, mobile use across various landscapes or just for short bursts in specific conditions. Ancient illustrations show the formation in use during sieges and narrow advances, but skeptics point out how exhausting it would be to maintain the shield lock under rough, real terrain. Either way, the principle was clear: adapt or die. You finally reach the top. Your knees are jelly. Your spine feels 2 inches shorter. But you made it. The centurion gives a nod, a rare honor in itself. Then, with a grin, and now down the other side. You all groan as one. It's a beautiful moment of group suffering. Descending in Testudo is even worse. Gravity doesn't care about discipline. Your boots skid. Your thighs shake. Someone behind you sneezes and almost triggers a chain reaction collapse. But somehow, you manage it. Downhill, shield still locked, the shell holds. At the base, the centurion looks almost proud. Some formations break, he says. You bend. That's better. You slump into the grass, panting like a dog. Your arms throb from holding your shield for what felt like centuries. But no one's injured. And the formation stayed whole. That's the Testudo's power. Not perfection. Persistence. Later that day, your cohort shares bread and dried figs beneath the sparse shade of a scraggly tree. Remember last week, one of them says, "Chewing," when we couldn't even hold a straight line. You chuckle. Now we're professional uphill turtles. There's laughter. Real laughter. You sit in silence for a moment, feeling the wind on your sweaty face. A strange thought creeps in. You trust these men. Not just with your back. With your life. That's not just training. That's Roman. And while you wouldn't admit it out loud, you're starting to feel a little proud of your tortoise shell. If you thought uphill testudo was the worst thing Rome had to offer, think again. Today, you meet its weird little sibling, the split testudo. Yes, apparently tortoises can do tricks. You and your cohort are gathered on the training field. Your centurion has a gleam in his eye that never means anything good. We fight in chaos, he begins. Not on perfect parade grounds. You must learn to adapt. To divide. To reform. Even while under attack. You're not sure what that means until he points to the edge of the field, where a cluster of wooden barricades and painted enemy archers will stand. Then he waves toward a series of low stone walls zigzagging through the field. We advance in formation. Then, at the signal, you split into two. One group flanks left. The other holds. Both keep the shell intact. Understood? You do not understand. But that doesn't matter. Understanding is optional. Obeying is not. You line up. Shields ready. Form testudo. Mainstream historical fact: in more complex battlefield situations, Roman units learn to adapt their testudo formations to suit tactical objectives. There are accounts of formations splitting mid-advance to encircle targets, block flanks, or allow engineers and sappers through. These were risky maneuvers requiring near-perfect discipline and lightning-fast reaction time. You advance in that comforting darkness again. 100 marching feet. The clink of armor. The weight of strategy pressing on your shoulders harder than the shield itself. Then, the horn sounds. 3 sharp blasts. That's the signal. You've drilled this. Once. And never successfully. Split, someone yells. The front rank halts. The rear and left peel off, a dozen soldiers turning sharply like joints in a living machine. For a second, it works. Then someone stumbles. The right side's roof sags. A gap opens. Plug it, another voice shouts. You twist your body sideways, turning your shield to the side, covering the exposed flank. Your comrade mirrors the motion on the other side. It's not pretty, but it's functional. You're no longer one shell. You're 2 smaller ones, like tortoise twins who just realized they hate being conjoined. Quirky tidbit: Roman soldiers sometimes gave nicknames to testudo maneuvers based on how well, or poorly, they worked. A clean split was called Gemini, all the twins. A messy one was nicknamed Turbula, which needs no translation. The centurions didn't laugh. But everyone else did. You lurch forward again. Your left group loops wide, flanking around the fake enemy barricades. The right group holds position, absorbing arrow volleys from practice bows. You're now seeing both the strength and fragility of this formation. One crack, and it could all crumble. But instead, something else happens. It clicks. The left side reaches the enemy. The right side tightens up. Collapse, comes the order. Like elastic snapping back into place, the two halves surge toward each other, shields closing in, lines reforming. You are, once again, one tortoise. Only now, you're right on top of the enemy position. Historians still argue whether complex testudo tactics like splitting and reforming were commonly used in battle or were more of a parade ground demonstration. Some ancient texts suggest elite legions, especially under generals like Caesar, trained heavily in modular formations, while others believe these maneuvers were rare due to their difficulty and the risk of breakdown. Today, you don't care about the debates. Because you did it. You survived the maneuver. Your formation held. When the practice horn sounds the end of the drill, your unit breathes as one. You drop your shields. Your arms feel like boiled vines. But you're grinning. The centurion even gives a short nod before walking away. That's basically a hug. Later that evening, your unit gathers by the fire. Bread is passed around. Dried apples. A flask of watered wine. You see that peel, someone says. We were like tortoise petals. Another snorts. More like tortoise barf. You all laugh. You sit, watching the firelight flicker off a dozen dented shields stacked nearby. They aren't shiny. They aren't elegant. But they are tested. And in a few days, you'll face the final one, live testudo under live fire. Not practice. Not soup. The real deal. You're almost ready. You wake before the horn. Not because you're eager, but because today is that day. The one the centurion whispered about during gear inspections. The one that made the older soldiers tighten their jawlines and the newer ones fake bravado with bad jokes. Today, live testudo under live fire. As in, actual projectiles. Not training rocks. Not turnip soup. The real stuff. You dress in silence. The clank of buckles and the rustle of linen are the only sounds. No jokes today. Not even your usual let's die fashionably muttering. You march to the proving field as the sun rises blood orange across the horizon. And there it is. The arena. An open field surrounded by ditches and small towers, some manned by artillery crews. Not wooden fakes this time. These guys are from the ballista division. Yes, them. The ones who cheer when they break things. Mainstream historical fact, Roman training sometimes included live projectile drills using soft-tipped or the dulled ammunition, especially in elite units. Artillery crews, manning Scorpios, ballistae, and onagers were trained to fire around or over formations to simulate real siege or battlefield chaos. It was dangerous, yes, but it worked. Roman units became terrifyingly calm under fire. The centurion paces in front of you. This is no longer for muscle, he says. This is for your mind. He lifts his shield. You will not run. You will not flinch. You will advance as you were trained, step, lock, cover. You will trust the men to your left and right. He walks away. A silence follows. Then the horn sounds. Testudo forms. You're inside the shell again. But this time, your heart is pounding like a legionary drummer in a tavern fight. Forward, the decurion shouts. You move. And then... thunk. Crack. The first ballista bolt slams into a wooden post nearby, splinters flying past your face. Shields tighten. Feet shuffle forward. The noise is immense. Not deafening, jarring. Every sound is sharp and unpredictable. A Scorpio bolt skips across the dirt in front of you like a devil's javelin. You don't flinch. Okay. You flinch a little. But you keep moving. Another projectile hits the roof. The man holding that section grunts, hard, but stays in place. Someone up front hisses, "That cracked my shield." "Then hold it tighter," comes the reply. Quirky tidbit: some Roman soldiers were so used to shield-heavy drills that they developed strong asymmetry in their muscles. Gladiators mocked legionaries for having one arm like a hero, one like a goat. Training instructors sometimes made recruits switch arms for testudo, just to build ambidexterity and humility at once. Halfway across the field now. Arrows rain from above. Practice-tipped, but still sharp enough to stick into your shield like iron mosquitoes. One glances off your helmet and makes your ears ring. You stay locked. Your foot almost slips in a rut, some ancient will track in the dirt, but the man behind you steadies your backplate without missing a step. Historians still argue how common these live drills were across the empire. Some claim only elite units, like Caesar's 10th or Trajan's expeditionary forces, trained under real fire. Others believe it was more widespread, citing logistical notes and training camp blueprints with live-fire zones. But today, the argument doesn't matter. Because you're in it. 60 paces. 30. 15. A ballista bolt slams into the shield overhead, almost knocking it clean out of your friend's hand. You hear him gasp, but he grips harder. 10 more steps. 5. Then, asterisk. Silence. The horn blares twice. Halt. You stop. In formation. Under fire. Still standing. You did it. Your shell holds. The centurion walks toward you with that special expression, annoyed that he has nothing to criticize. He taps a few shields. Examines a cracked one. Grunts in approval. Not bad, he says. Could have died a little quieter. You exhale for what feels like the first time all day. Later, in the barracks, the chatter returns. Did you see that bolt? Someone says, eyes wide. Landed 2 paces from me. Lucky, another mutters. Mine bounced off and tried to kiss my foot. You pull off your gear slowly. Your arm is numb. Your shield arm feels like it belongs to someone else. But your mind is sharper. And strangely, lighter. You didn't die. You didn't run. You stood in the middle of chaos and walked through it. That's Testudo. That's Rome. Your shield arm still trembles from yesterday's test. And yet, the centurion's voice booms across the yard before the sun has fully shaken off the mist. Today is scenario combat. If you mess up, pretend you didn't. Because today, it's not just Testudo. It's Testudo plus. Traps. Obstacles. Mixed terrain. And, worst of all, unpredictable orders. The centurion calls it chaos marching. You're starting to think he invents terms just to watch you suffer. Mainstream historical fact: Roman military drills often included unpredictable command scenarios, designed to simulate the confusion of real battle. Orders might be changed mid-formation. Goals would shift. Reinforcements might be delayed or never arrive. Commanders wanted soldiers who could think while obeying, which is exactly as painful as it sounds. You're split into 3 units. Your orders? Advance through a broken urban mock town, recover a fake standard from a tower, and exit through a narrow gate, all while maintaining Testudo and adjusting formation under fire. Easy. If you're already a god. You form up. Shield interlock. First 10 steps go fine. Then the centurion yells, "Debris ahead." Elevate shields. You raise the front row's shields vertically, as if climbing stairs with a steel wall strapped to your chest. Someone mutters, "I'm a soldier, not a ladder." Another whispers, "You're barely either." You climb over uneven wooden blocks simulating rubble. Every step sends little shockwaves through your calves. Then, collapse. Narrow corridor. Just like that, the wide shell must tighten. You pivot, pressing shoulders into your neighbors. There's no room for elbows. You're basically inhaling the breath of the guy in front of you. Keep locked, the rear rank shouts. A fake arrow strikes your shield, making a sharp twack sound that ricochets in your bones. Quirky tidbit: some Roman camps drilled soldiers to handle sudden ambushes from rooftops during city scenarios. Their Testudo variation? Over-under. Bottom ranks held ground shields outward, top ranks raised them up and angled like a sloped roof. It looked ridiculous but worked well against improvised attacks, like rooftop javelin throwers and furious goats. True story, Capua, 61 BCE. You round a corner. Suddenly, stop. A legionnaire in purple cloak, a stand-in for an allied unit, barrels in with a message scroll. You read it aloud. Your task changes. New orders. Bypass tower. Reinforce alley unit. Your cohort groans, audible even inside the shell. You pivot again. More mud. More fake rooftops raining bits of wood. One hits your helmet and rolls down your breastplate. You don't flinch anymore. You're starting to live inside the shell like a second skin. Historians still argue how often soldiers could adapt to such dynamic commands in real time. Some say this level of coordination was reserved for elite legions with months of drill time. Others argue that Rome's military genius lay in how quickly even average soldiers could be trained into order from chaos. You burst through the alley, shields tight. The exit gate looms. 2 more paces. 1. And then, asterisk. Collapse. Another sudden command, drop and reform. You fall back, forming a circle testudo, the rare defensive ring used when surrounded. The centurion throws a red powder bag into the air. It bursts above you like fake fire, signaling your scenario's end. You're sweating through your tunic. Shield nicked. Knees throbbing. Sand in your teeth. But the gate is past. The standard is safe. You lived. Barely. Later, as you're drinking barley water and scrubbing mud from your greaves, someone mutters, "I feel like I've been through 3 fake wars today." Another replies, "That was just breakfast." You laugh harder than you have all week. And in that laugh is a strange realization: you're becoming someone who functions inside confusion. Someone who doesn't panic. Someone who holds the line. A Roman. Even your centurion cracks a half-smile as he walks past your group. He mutters, "Good shell." It's the nicest thing he's ever said. Today is different. No yelling. No gear checks. No fresh drills. Today is the Testudo Review, a full rerun of everything you've learned, but with one delightful twist. You're being watched. The commander of the Legion is here. Real armor. Real entourage. Real I could promote you or bury you energy. And so, you polish your shield until you can see your exhausted reflection in it. Then you rewrap the leather grips. Then unwrap. Then rewrap again because someone next to you said, you did it backward. You hate that guy. Mainstream historical fact, Roman military inspections were serious business. Entire units could gain favor or disgrace based on performance. Promotions, punishments, and battle postings often depended on how cleanly a formation executed maneuvers, especially in front of a senior officer. Show drills were not just ceremony. They were auditions for survival. The drill field is quiet. Then the horn blows. Form Testudo. It's almost a reflex now. Your body locks in. Left shield locks over right. Roof shields rise in sequence. You march. Smooth. Measured. Like 100 armored ants. Then the commander barks a new order, open shell. Absorb allies. It's a curveball. You know this one from practice, but never under scrutiny. Your front two rows separate just slightly, just enough for a mock cavalry unit to rush through the opening and take cover inside your formation. It's ridiculous. You feel like a walking coliseum. But it works. The formation tightens again, now with allied riders crouching beneath the overhead shields. The commander raises one eyebrow. That's practically applause. You move again. Quirky tidbit, there's evidence that advanced Roman units experimented with multipurpose Testudo variants, ones that could accommodate medics, engineers, even mounted scouts in tight battlefield spots. Some mosaics in North Africa show curious centaur shell combos, possibly symbolic, possibly literal field experiments that were later abandoned because, well, horses hate being squished. Right pivot. You wheel the whole shell around like a choreographed school of metal fish. Contract formation. You squeeze tighter. Split shell. Simulate flanking. Your unit separates, cleaner than last time. The commander paces alongside both halves. His eyes scan every boot, every elbow. You swear he's counting heartbeats. And then, finally, reform. Final advance. You hear the signal. 2 clicks. You close the shell, back to full Testudo, and advance in silence. The sun hits your shield and throws a bright flash across the parade field. At the edge of the platform, the commander nods. Just once. But it sends a ripple of relief through the ranks. When the horn blows twice, you halt. The formation breaks. You step out into open air and light again. It feels like exiting a dream or crawling out of a very orderly cave. Your centurion joins you. He doesn't smile, but his voice drops the usual steel edge. Well done, he says. You blink. Did he say done? Historians still argue about the exact forms and commands used in Roman demonstration drills. Some ancient writings suggest these events were as much for political show as tactical display, used to impress visiting dignitaries, boost troop morale, or intimidate local populations. But for soldiers, it was always serious. Because in Rome, a good drill might earn you a lighter duty post. A bad one might earn you the front line. As you clean your gear for the 100th time, the barracks is quieter than usual. Not from exhaustion, but from pride. You did the thing. The real thing. The Testudo isn't just a trick with shields. It's a test of timing, discipline, and trust. You learned it in drills. Perfected it under fire. Proved it under judgment. And somehow, against all odds, you came out intact, shield arm numb, knees aching, face sunburned, but intact. The last thing you hear before sleep is someone mumbling, "If we get sent to Britannia next, I'm forming Testudo around my bed." You grin. And for once, you fall asleep before your arm even stops aching. You're not sure how many days have passed since the first time you held a shield. Time has blurred, like dirt rubbed into your eyes after too many formation drills. But now, it's almost over. Your cohort stands at the edge of a dusty hilltop overlooking a mock battlefield below. Today's task? Run the entire Testudo sequence, from scratch, with every variation, without a single shouted command. Only flags. Gestures. Eye contact. It's called the Silent March. Mainstream historical fact, Roman commanders placed heavy emphasis on silent communication. Trumpets, tubi, flags, hand signals, and even colored smoke were used to convey orders during battle. Units trained to interpret gestures across distances, essential for cohesion in the chaos of war, especially when sound was lost in the roar. You tighten your grip. By now, the shield feels like a natural extension of your body. An extra limb. Maybe a parasitic turtle. You glance sideways. The signal goes up, a red banner flicking in the breeze. You move. First into line, then Testudo. No words. Only action. The thud of sandals. The chink of bronze fittings. The slight grind of shield against shield. Then another signal, green. Variation, slanted Testudo for uphill advance. You tilt the front shields upward. Your line adapts. Breath becomes shallow. Legs burn. Up the slope you go. Your mind wanders, just briefly, remembering how you tripped over a goat 2 weeks ago. Humbling times. Another signal, yellow. Contract. Cross narrow bridge. You squeeze the formation. Your ribs press into the soldier next to you. You both smell like desperation and salted meat. Lovely. Quirky tidbit, in some frontier forts, Roman soldiers painted small symbols on the inside rim of their shields to help align positions silently, tiny arrows, dots, or even crude smiley faces. Archaeologists once found a shield fragment near the Rhine with what looked like a stick-figure duck. You pass over the bridge. Someone slips. The line wobbles. But it recovers. That's the difference now. Before, a slip became a break. Now, it becomes a step. A learning curve with sandals. You reach the center of the battlefield. Another flag. Blue. Circle Testudo. Defensive hold. You form a rotating shell around a standard bearer. The banner flutters in the center like a proud rooster. More movement. More changes. Then the final signal, black. Advance as full Testudo toward the commander's platform. Your arms scream. Your neck aches from the weight of the shield roof. Your knees are possibly writing angry letters to your brain. But you move forward. Slowly. Proudly. The sun reflects off your formation like a moving bronze sarcophagus, gliding toward command. Historians still argue whether the testudo was really used as frequently in battle as Roman writers claim. Some suggest it was mainly ceremonial or situational, used in sieges or controlled advances, but rarely in open battle. Others argue it was one of the most effective psychological weapons in Rome's playbook, demoralizing enemies with sheer unity. Either way, it works now. The commander watches in silence. No nods. No gestures. You halt. Perfect timing. The formation opens like a blooming iron flower. The standard is revealed. The silence holds. Then, a cheer. Not wild. Not chaotic. Disciplined. Controlled. Roman. Later, at the barracks, you sit cross-legged beside a low fire. Someone's baking flatbread on a shield-turned grill. Another is sketching something on the dirt, a turtle with a gladius. You all laugh, softly. This, finally, is the end. The centurion approaches and speaks just 4 words. You held the shell. And with that, you're dismissed. You lie back, arms behind your head, staring at the stars above. No drills tomorrow. No testudo. Just sleep. But the rhythm of shields, the steps of unity, the language of silent formation, it stays inside you. You could march in your dreams now. And perhaps, tonight, you will. The fire crackles gently beside your bunk, casting soft shadows across your now scuffed armor. The air cools. The stars hang like ancient coins overhead. You're safe now. Off the field. The shield rests by your side, no longer a burden, just a silent companion. You breathe. Long, slow. The kind of breath that doesn't prepare you for battle, but invites you into rest. There are no horns tonight. No drills. No commands to memorize. No terrain to cross. Just the whisper of wind outside the barracks, weaving through the olive trees, brushing gently across the rooftops like a ghost from the past. Maybe a few ghosts are smiling at you now. Maybe one of them is whispering, "You did well." The aches in your muscles begin to melt. The hardness in your thoughts dissolves. And even the tension that's lived in your shoulders since the first formation finally loosens, just a little. Let your eyes get heavier. Let the night hold you like a safe shell of its own. You're not marching anymore. You're resting. You've earned it. And tomorrow? Well, let tomorrow be quiet. For now, drift off. Float backward into a world of silence and shadows, where all testudo shells are soft as clouds, and even the fiercest centurions snore like drowsy bears. Rest, soldier. You held the line. Sweet dreams.